Hello and welcome to this week's YouTube video. Do your paintings look off and you're not really sure why? Do you struggle to know what to do to them so they feel more alive? It may be that your edges are off. In this video, I will be showing you how I painted Coco and how I used my edges to exaggerate the personality of my subject. What do I mean by edges? Firstly, this is where one object ends and another begins. Remember, a camera gives us a 3D object in 2D. Replicating what you see will only give you an unconvincing 2D effect. When a light hits an object, it bends around it, so you need to take account of this in your painting. Let's have a quick look at my reference photo. Notice how my edges are out of focus around Coco. Also notice the value transition around the edges. Don't forget that Coco's head is essentially a sphere and will behave as such with regards to the light. If you are tempted to overcopy your reference photo, you can try pinning it around 1.5 meters away from your workstation. You then won't be able to see the detail. If you have Photoshop, you can also try using the medium tool, which you can find under Filter, then Noise. Alternatively, you can try squinting at your reference photo. Again, this will prevent you from seeing the detail. The edges that are still visible will be your hard ones. Notice with my reference photo of Coco that the only edge that is really jumping out at me is his tongue. His eyes have disappeared, as have the detail in his fur. I can get away with painting very little detail and it's still looking like a scruffy dog. The most important thing to see at this point are my value changes and temperature shifts. Secondly, edges come into play every time we lay a brush stroke. Brush strokes can be soft, gradual and abrupt. The relationship between all your brush strokes is what gives your painting personality. If I try to meticulously copy exactly what I see, I won't get a feeling of energy and life from my painting. Overblending my strokes will also give me this problem. Therefore, I need to mimic how the eye would see this dog in real life. The camera captures all those hairs. Don't be tempted to paint them. Instead, focus on one area, for example the mouth, and let everything else begin to lose focus. You can do this with loose brush strokes and soft and lost edges. I will give you some simple tips for how to achieve this later in the video. First, let's look at my palette and colours I use for this painting. I am using cadmium yellow light, yellow ochre light, transparent yellow oxide, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, transparent red oxide, cerulean blue, ultramarine deep, titanium zinc white and viridian. I've also mixed up a few other colours. This includes a black red and a black green. When I mix these two together, they give me my rich black, a purple, 2 oranges and 2 more greens. Getting the colour mixes for Coco's fur is very straightforward. I mix these two together to give me this black here. As the value of the fur changes, I add white to my mix. As the temperature of the fur changes, I can either add more of my green blue to give me this colour, more of my red to give me this colour, or where the fur really warms up and goes more orangey brown, I add either of these two. For the grass, I am using viridian mixed with a little cadmium yellow plus white. I'm then adding a bit of this orange or some of my rich black to give me a broken colour effect. If you would like to know more about how to paint this effect, have a look at this video on my channel. The most important thing to note is that broken colour will give your painting energy. Now we understand what we are seeing in our reference photo, the colours that we will use and the different properties that edges can have, how do we actually lay our strokes to give us the effect we want? First of all, you need to have enough paint on your canvas to be able to pull your paint around. So ideally, you will be painting in a method of alla prima painting. This is where your paint goes on all at once. Note you can do this over a number of days. I usually do it over 3 days as my paint remains wet enough to be malleable even on day 3. You can also use a medium in your paint as well to keep it wetter for longer. Although I do not use medium in areas that require more precision like the face area, but wetter paint in the background areas will certainly help you to pull your edges into each other. Secondly, you need to think about the brushes that you are using. My flat synthetic brushes are great at loading the paint on. I use them a bit like a mini palette knife. I lay the paint rather than brushing it. I will use these brushes in my first layer. Eclipse Coma brushes are great for softer areas or pulling paint into paint. There are a couple of ways you can use these. Loading them with paint and pulling it across the top of your first layer, or using a clean and dry brush to gently blend out hard edges. Don't overblend though. Or using them wet with paint plus a medium light Gamsol. The last option creates a much wetter effect. I use this technique in the fur around the face. I have also used the same effect here with rich black over my green, but with a lot less paint. How much paint you add to your brush is up to you, but just be aware that the Gamsol will take paint off, so you have to be quick and decisive if you use this method, and only do one pass over the painting in any given area. The most important thing to understand is that the brush is wet when you add the paint. I would suggest experimenting with this technique. Don't try it on an important painting because you may find you'll lose areas to the Gamsol. The last thing you need to consider is how to apply the paint. Are you being too careful with your hand action? These areas look like the paint has been applied quickly and decisively. That is because it has. The more strokes I add, the more I'm likely to lose that figure. Where more precision is required, I am much more careful with laying my paint accurately so as not to lose my drawing. Being confident with your painting does require you to be correct with your value and your temperature choices. So if you go wrong, scrape the paint off and have another go. If you are wildly out or it just looks wrong, don't try to correct paint on top of paint. Getting good expressive brushwork is more important. I hope you have enjoyed today's video and found it useful. Please like and subscribe if you can, and check out my website sarahhallidayart.com, where you will find examples of my work and also details of online classes that I run. Thank you for watching and see you for the next one.